mateys! It be your favorite swashbuckling buccaneer, Foxy the Pirate.
In the early 2010s, Five Nights at Freddy's became one of the most influential horror games of all time. Its legacy spawned hundreds of fan projects, but few captured its atmosphere quite like the FNAF VHS tapes. What began as short, unsettling fan videos on YouTube grew into something much larger, a sprawling mythos of analog horror, hidden messages, and disturbing lore that blurred the line between fiction and reality. This is the FNAF VHS Iceberg, a descent through every theory, lost tape, and hidden horror behind one of the darkest corners of the internet. So without further ado, let's dive into level 1, the surface of entertainment.
Welcome to the Fazbear Entertainment Maintenance Video Manual. This tape will cover the instructions on how until it is completely removed. Climb inside the torso and accept your death.
This is the layer most people know, the mainstream face of the FNAF VHS genre. The origin all started in 2019 as the tapes you're seeing now, created by Squimpus McGrimpus, single-handedly defined the VHS style for Five Nights at Freddy's. There was many VHS tapes uploaded, such as the Bonnie joint movement test that you're seeing now, along with multiple other videos containing Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and also Freddy. At first glance they looked like cheesy 1980s corporate training tapes, until they didn't. As the tapes progress, they begin to break down. Static distortion, brief flashes of blood, and distorted children's screams. Suddenly, these weren't just nostalgic homages to the games. They were found evidence of something horrifying. The charm lies in their presentation. The washed out colours, the film grain, and outdated formatting all evoke a sense of realism. Unlike the bright cartoonish horror of the games, these tapes feel real enough to exist, as if you actually found them in the abandoned location. These tapes would go on to be the origin of something more, as Battington, one of the biggest analog horror creators out there in terms of VHS, would go on to remake these tapes, and somehow make them even more terrifying than ever before. Battington would go on to remake the Fazbear Entertainment Video Manual along with the Bonnie joint movement test. However, the one that really caught people's eye was the Pirate Cove pre-show, which we'll be delving deeper into later on in the video. But these videos were a clear indication that the inspiration in 2019 from these original FNAF VHS tapes really transcended what the VHS horror could be for the subgenre of FNAF, emphasizing a level of growth and progression through horror in these stories, as they would truly go on to create a level of fear that hadn't been seen previously in the FNAF community. However, there was one tape that always got to me, something that really showcased a level of true filmmaking genius, And that wasn't in any of the Fazbear tapes specifically. It was more just pure dialogue and pure voice acting excellence. And that was the video of Memories. In this video, we would see an audio log from William Afton. This was his confession tape. The voice acting we see in this video purely emphasizes the true horror and disturbing nature of William Afton's character. The fact that someone as intelligent as him thoroughly thought out how he could get away with these murders of these 6 children.
Hello, whoever you are. You just found a cassette tape hidden in my bedroom. Isn't that strange? A man like William Afton, someone so simple and plain, hiding a cassette tape. Why would he be hiding anything? I'm sure that if you're from around here, you've heard of the somewhat recent happenings with Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. 3 cases of 1 and 1 case of 2. All of them adding up to the 5 missing children of Freddy's. That was me. I'll elaborate on that later.
He articulated his approach perfectly. However, as the tape goes on, we of course know his origin and how his story ends up, and the tape reminds us of that. As eventually, we see audio logs created almost like you're watching them straight out of the games. From the aftermath of FNAF 3's end scene, of William Afton being stuck in the animatronic rabbit, going on to possess as Springtrap. We see his audio logs, we hear the grumbled voice of him rotting away in the suit itself. The voice acting in this video is still to this day one of the best in the whole of analog horror, and still to this day, in my opinion, not been beaten. However, it is this simple piece of dialogue, to me, that transcended the VHS genre for FNAF. And that is what you are about to hear.
He killed him. I wanted to put my hands around his neck and just squeeze the life out of his lungs. But of course, if I ever did that, I'd get caught. I couldn't work because I was thinking too much about Mike. I couldn't concentrate on anything. The papers started piling up, and it kept fogging up my mind, and I needed a release. Then I had an idea. Maybe it didn't necessarily have to be Michael. It could be any other brand as long as I like them. Now, where do all of those children go? Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And hey, if they're like Michael, they deserve it. I went up there about 4 times, picked the worst kids of the bunch, took them back, and I gave it to them. I couldn't do much, of course. They'd start squealing. So I made it quick enough to be efficient, but long enough to make it last. It was hell for them, but it was heaven for me. And then I leave, without the slightest bit of guilt. So, there you go. And now that you've heard this, you should know that I check this spot every day to see if this tape is moved. I've seen it so many times, I'll be able to notice even the slightest difference. I will know. So you better put it back, Michael, as neatly as you can, and start running.
That single piece of voice acting showed the true nature of William Afton, almost giving us a better characterization of that character than the games itself, showing how truly menacing, disturbing, and how truly vicious William Afton is, and how he would treat someone this way, his own flesh and blood. A man so vicious, a man so hurt, but ultimately a man so disturbed. William Afton's characterization in FNAF VHS is just a tip of the iceberg. However, it is explained and characterized by utter perfection in filmmaking, and that is just a tip of the iceberg. However, we must delve deeper, beneath the tape itself, of how FNAF VHS as a genre evolved simply behind the homage and became a storytelling medium in its own right. In the Squimpus timeline, it is not just William Afton who gets a characterization here. It is also Michael Afton and the puppet. The story told in the Squimpus timeline originates through the first 3 games. We see how it all ends up in Fazbear's Fright, as the puppet informs Michael that he must end the story. However, not just Michael Afton's characterization in this story truly evokes emotional intrigue by the audience. It is also the puppet. We see a clip where the puppet is simply just talking to the spirits. A spirit that's defeated, feels like there is no escape, and begins to just succumb to the vicious reality of where they lie. However, through corrupted recordings, we see that this dialogue between the characters and Michael Afton is truly real. Something that is not present in the FNAF games whatsoever, but in a way gives the tapes more emotional depth than the games could ever get to. This timeline of Squimpus' story truly expanded the genre, as after Squimpus so many others followed. For example, Spectre, as a prime example, introduced a whole new level of FNAF VHS tapes, introducing Blender footage to really show a sense of immersion within these tapes, along with other tapes that blended ARG elements, leading viewers to hidden websites and text files. The FNAF VHS community became a shared hallucination, each creator contributing to a collective mythos. Playlists often included quote-unquote deleted videos, broken links or placeholders that say redacted or video unavailable. Sometimes it may have been real that a creator took a video down. However, other times it seemed intentional, a way of implying that some footage was never meant to be seen. It's the first time viewers realize the tapes aren't just simple horror, they're performative mystery. They're fueled with immersion, and you as the viewer are the one conducting the story. As with each piece of VHS that you press play on is furthering the story's journey. However, if you begin to pause or eject that tape, you end the story entirely. And that is how this timeline of Squimpus was the origin of everything that came prior. However, in this next level of the iceberg, we delve into the hidden files, as this is where the line between fiction and ARG begins to blur.
And open his mouth. Hopefully if this goes well, we can start going into specifics. Alright, first picture, innocent. Alright, good. Second, criminal. Good, very good.
This tier really resonates with Afton as a character, as many creators have hid a reoccurring phrase in their audio, distorted voices saying, "We're still here, Michael," obviously a nod to the main character and protagonist of the series, Michael Afton. However, in the tape you see now of the classic criminal tape, I want you to watch this clip. And before the actual scare happens, I want you to see if you notice anything in this frame.
Criminal. Innocent. Criminal. Innocent. What's this doing here? The hell? Hey, no, 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 no! Look, I know we can't have that guy back here, but you can't just put shit in without telling me. I could have died. God damn it, you know what? How about you take your facial recognition and shove it? Because I'm not working in this death trap anymore, starting right now!
To me, it's quite obvious, as you can see William Afton's face hiding in the top left of the screen. Viewers discovered these audio files by running through spectrograms, revealing ghostly images and cryptic text hidden within. To some, this symbolizes the spirits of the children haunting the animatronics, or William Afton himself being alive within the tapes. However, in terms of theories, a supposed lost Squimpus tape resurfaced on Reddit with Spring Bonnie movement test, showing the animatronic twitching and glitching violently before cutting to black. No one's verified this tape. Some say it was fan-made, others believe it was deleted for being too real. At this point, the FNAF VHS scene becomes almost like folk horror through media archaeology, a digital urban legend. However, at this point, the resurgence of FNAF VHS had emerged, as for years it was saturated with so many different versions of VHS tapes. Eventually, the subgenre just withered into the dust, as you could not find any sort of quality in terms of popularity. Every tape seemed the same. However, until one creator decided to take us all the way back to the beginning, and that was Battington himself, as once again recreating the Fazbear tapes from Squimpus from all those years ago, beginning with Freddy, going on to Bonnie, and then to Chica. Chica's tape to me has always stood out among the rest, along with the next tape that we will go into its own section on. However, this Chica tape is something that has revolutionized the character of Chica herself, to almost give her a sense of pure fear. However, you might ask, why are these videos relevant in this section? Why are the hidden files relevant here? And that comes from the very beginning of this Chica tape.
Chica? It's time to go home, baby bird. Mommy? It's time to go home. Home. Take me home with you. No, Chica. Baby bird. No, Chica. You're scaring me.
As we see a first-person view of this supposed young girl in the bathroom being stalked by Chica, as when she eventually hides in the toilet and she prays that Chica will not find her, unfortunately her prayers are not answered. However, hidden upon the bathroom stalls, we see Afton hidden in plain sight. This tape does not only emphasize the level of fear, but also a sense of realism, because this footage puts us in the shoes of the victims, gives us a sense of how they would have seen things, gives us a sense of perspective, and how vicious and utterly terrifying these situations were. As we eventually, the tape goes on, we realize that this is once again a recreation of Squimpus' tapes. However, Battington decides to do something different to give it a sense of originality. And that is what transforms this video from good to absolutely fantastic. However, it was one video that truly revolutionized Battington's FNAF VHS tapes. A tape that is among many one of the best Squimpus tapes, especially for me, a video I thought was impossible to make better. However, from the opening 30 seconds of Battington's version, it absolutely revolutionizes Pirate Cove pre-show. We see a true commercial that would have been shown to the audiences back in the 80s, giving us once again that level of immersion and perspective from someone in the universe. This video truly emphasizes a sense of fear, a sense of unease, and a sense of what's going to happen next. Because you know that something is going to go wrong. You know it's coming at some point, but you just don't know when, and you don't know what it will be. And that is the perfection of horror media. Tricking the audience into a sense of uncomfort, a sense of liability, and a sense of confusion. That is what Pirate Cove pre-show does. It lures you in. It makes you resonate with the characters of the animatronics. And then it hits. The horror, the gore, and the utter fear that emerges from this video. And that is what you're about to witness.
Ahoy, me mateys! It be your favorite swashbuckling buccaneer, Foxy, the Pirate Fox! Arg! When I tell ya, we got a grand show for you today, in just about 10 minutes! Wait, 10 minutes? That's right, 10 minutes! Can ya bloody believe it?
However, once again, hidden away at the back end of the tape, there is something waiting for each viewer to slowly be consumed. After the gore you've just witnessed, the tape slowly becomes silent, once again giving you that sense of uncomfortability, a sense of silence, but also lets your mind wander about what you might see, what might happen, as then once again it lures you in and lets you succumb to the video's intentions, as one last sucker punch lands without effort, as once again creating one of the scariest versions of a FNAF VHS tape ever posted to YouTube.
Discard it immediately. Viewing of this.
What's the matter, Foxy? I thought you wanted an audience. What you doing? What you doing?
Now, with every roll of VHS tape, the question has to appear: who is watching these tapes? Who in universe is collecting these tapes and viewing them? As some fans have theorized that maybe there's an unseen conscious force that connects these tapes. It's not Afton, not the animatronics, but a spirit feeding on the memory and data corruption within the Fazbear universe. The VHS files themselves are quote-unquote haunted, and watching them spreads the entity like a digital curse. As some viewers have discovered faint breathing among some of the end of the tapes, and when amplified, it resembles a human inhale, as someone was behind the camera, still recording. Now, does this bring the message that the observer, the person watching these tapes, has never even left? Theories like that really do make me question these tapes. Who is viewing them? For example, the tape you're seeing now. Who is viewing these tapes other than corporate employees? However, the Springtrap element of this video, who is seeing this? It's meant for Michael Afton, but how has it gotten to us? There has to be some way that we're able to hear the spirits, as the tape you are now seeing and you will witness involves a conversation between Bonnie and Chica. More specifically, the two spirits trapped in this desolate hell with no escape. As this tape does not resemble or personify fear, but personifies a sense of reality. Two kids, their lives taken aback, ruined by one person, and now they have to suffer the consequences. Now, as we come towards the end of this iceberg, it is clear to say that this is what this series is truly all about. Yes, it may on the surface look like a horror series. It may have plenty of scares, plenty of gore, all originated by these scary videos created by Squimpus that have been revolutionized by Battington. But at the core of it all, it's a story about tragedy. 4 kids, 2 added on from previous victims, innocent kids, lives that were ruined by a man who had this insatiable hunger to kill. A man who was so selfish that couldn't even bring himself to forgive his own son. A man that had this insatiable hunger that he needed to feed. And by doing so, he took the lives of the innocent. And in return, he lost the humanity in himself. That tape, that conversation between Bonnie and Chica truly shows on the surface of what this series is all about. It just took the viewer that little bit more digging, the little bit more time of watching the tapes, as that video is about the 6th entry in the series, maybe even less. However, that is how you delve into the story, as that tragedy instantly floats to the top of the iceberg in that video. However, as soon as that next video plays with Fredbear's Family Diner, that tragedy sinks all the way once again to the bottom. When people think about Five Nights at Freddy's, they don't think about the tragedy of the story. They more or less think of the horrific nature of it. The kids being slaughtered by a man who was just simply evil. But those who delve a little bit deeper find out that the story of Five Nights at Freddy's is truly, truly sad. Truly melancholy. And at the core of it all, purely tragic. The story of Five Nights at Freddy's goes on and lives on up until this day and will live on further. These VHS tapes only fed us fans more and more, and to me, personified these characters better than any of the games ever could. The character of William Afton, the character of the puppet, the characters of the animatronics and souls that lie within have all been personified in a more effective way through these VHS tapes rather than the games that they originate in. And that says it all of how underdeveloped the games truly are at their core. A Fredbear's Family Diner game would truly emphasize the characterizations that lie within this series. Secret of the Mimic, in my opinion, was the closest we got to any level of character in this franchise. The movies, of course, provide a level of characters because it's essential. And the games, in Sister Location and Pizza Simulator specifically, have these personifications. However, in the opening 3 games, you get lore, you get the story, but you don't get as much character development as you do while watching these VHS tapes. And so for me, if you truly want to understand the story of Five Nights at Freddy's, these VHS tapes provide a level of characterization that's truly unseen anywhere else. FNAF VHS isn't just a fan project. It's a reflection of how we process nostalgia, grief, and obsession. Every tape contains a ghost, not just of a child or a company, but our own fixation on the past. And that's why maybe the tapes always start again with a new creator, a possible new story, but at the end of it all, it's all originated from one place. And that's the beauty of the Five Nights at Freddy's story. Because when done right, it's truly effective Truly emotional, but on the surface, truly horrifying for every single viewer.